The Lions are prowling around Perth right now, looking to sink their teeth into the Western Force on Saturday and hopefully at the same time perhaps put the tour back up on its feet after a slightly disjointed opening foray against Argentina in Dublin. Welcome to the Quick Tap on The Good, the Bad and the Rugby. I'm Graham Simmons and I'm joined today by Lion number 847, which probably isn't much of a clue, but it's the 2021 Lions Tourist and 2021 Six Nations Player of the Tournament, if I remember rightly, Hamish Watson. A very warm welcome to you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
It's a delight to have you. How are you? Where are you?
I'm currently in rainy Devon on holidays. Although looking up now, you wouldn't quite believe it. It's chucking it down with rain, but
Well,
no,
the
it's
tan's
all.
still there. The tan's still coming on. You're looking good.
Well, I'm not sure about that. I go red. I don't really tan, but no, it's good. We've had a good bit of time off with Edinburgh. Still got 3.5 weeks, so it's just trying to keep ticking over and still preparing for pre-season a bit as well. So first couple of weeks were off, and then now it's about trying to stay fit and not embarrass yourself too much when you get back into camp.
Welcome anyway, Mish. Good to have you here. We're also obviously in the company of our sponsors, Continental Tyres, the official tyre partner of England Rugby, whether it's on the rugby field or on the road. You can trust Continental Tyres for exceptional safety, performance and grip. If you're joining us on YouTube, as ever, do hit the like button and chip in and or the notification bell, ding dong, for the good, the bad and the rugby channel. Right, Mish, the Lions team to take on the Western Force has just dropped. It is hot off the press. Saturday evening in Perth, Saturday morning our time, obviously. For those of you out there who maybe haven't had a chance to have a look at it yet, I will run through it very briefly for you. It is Elliot Daly, it is Mac Hansen and James Lowe on the wings. Centre, Gary Ringrose and Sani Tuipulotu, Finn Russell and Thomas Williams at halfback. Up front, we have Pierre Schumann. We have Dan Sheehan, who captains the side. I think that's his debut, isn't it? Mish, he's captaining on debut, which is some effort for him. Tyke Furlong gets a start. We have Scott Cummings. We have Joe McCarthy. Tyke Byrne gets his second start of the tour at 6. Josh Van der Fleer at 7. Henry Pollock at 8. And on the bench, all important, Ronan Kelleher, Andrew Porter, Will Stewart, Ollie Chesham, Jack Conan, Alex Mitchell, Hugh Jones, and Marcus Smith. Mish, you've had a few moments to have a look through that. What do you think?
I think it's obviously a very good team, like all the Lions teams are going to be. For me, maybe slightly biased point of view, but I'm quite excited to see Finn and Sione linking up. Obviously, Sione for the Argentina games at 13 normally can play 13, obviously, but normally plays 12. And with the chemistry him and Finn have, I think that'll be interesting. You should get the best out of Sione there and Finn. Both of them know each other pretty well. Thomas Williams looked very good when he came on. I thought off the bench,
He did, didn't he?
Speed of the game up. I thought he looked great. Get a first look at Ringrose in a sense as well. Interesting one for me in the pack is Ty Byrne at 6. I think even before the tour, when you were speaking to friends and family and rugby heads like all of us, that was something that I thought they might run in the test series. A second row at 6. Obviously, Tigers played at 6 a lot. Chesham, there's a few others who can maybe fill that role, and I think that is something. If it goes well, they could look up for the test series just with just gives you that extra line out option. With us picking quite a lot of sevens in the squad, we might need that extra height in the back row. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes. Scotty Cummings obviously gets his first start, so that'll be for many Scotland fans that'll be interesting as well. And I'm sure Pollock at 8 will be an interesting one as well. We didn't see too much of his flair against Argentina. I thought obviously the Argentinians were pretty excellent in that game, but it'll be interesting to see if he gets a few moments of magic. And then on the bench, a few guys getting their first starts for the Lions, so massive moments for them. Jack Conan coming back in, who probably we would think would be the starting 8 in my opinion anyway. Big ball carrier, can jump in the line out. And then, Hugh Jones off the bench as well, so he might get to link up with Sione at some point during the game.
I guess when the Lions are looking for some cohesion, which was, understandably perhaps missing against Argentina, Mish. I mean, it's a happy coincidence that they've got so many Leinster players, for example, and Irish players, all ready to run, ready for a trundle across the 23. How important is that going to be? And it's interesting that, I mean, Andy Farrell could have actually gone with a few more combinations. I mean, he could have started Hugh Jones at 13 with sort of the Russell to Pollock Jones thing, but he's gone with Ringrose. He could have had Conan at 8. He's gone with Pollock at 8 instead. So there could have been even more cohesion potentially in there. But how happy are you from that point of view of seeing a little less disjointed Lions performance given the team that's out?
Yeah, I think against Argentina, it's always going to be tough. What the boys have had 2 weeks to prepare, and you've got four nations coming together. It's never going to be perfect, and we saw that against the Argentinians. Um, for this game, or like you say, he's gone for a few more combinations, which makes it slightly easier when you're on the park and you see players like we said, the Finn and the Sione. You got Tig scrumming with Dan Sheehan. Just those small little bits of cohesion make a massive difference. You know exactly what they want from you. You know what you can deliver as well. So and it just helps having faces that you've been in a Six Nations game before. You know what each other can deliver, and that's what the Lions is all about. Obviously Andy Farrell will just have to work out which combinations work best. I don't, like you say, he could have gone Hugh Jones and Sione, but I think it also at this stage early on as well, you want to try out different combinations as well and see, for example, Ringrose and Sione in the centres, they might work amazingly well together. So you have to try different things as well. You're never or otherwise you're just going to stick 15 Leinster players in, I guess. So you've got to try everything as well and see what works.
Just in terms of guys we haven't seen yet, Mish, and just to see how concerned you are about this. I mean, obviously Blair Kinghorn, he'll arrive next week, after the top 14 final. Guys you haven't seen: James Ryan, Hugo Keenan, and JGP. How worried should we be about the injury situation with these guys? Because not only they don't start, obviously they don't appear on the bench either. You would have assumed if there was a serious problem with Jamieson that they would have flown some temporary covering, because potentially, captain's run tomorrow. If he's not fit at all to start, if there were captain's run tomorrow and Alex Mitchell or Thomas Williams turned an ankle, you suddenly only got one scrum half. So presumably, I'm reading into that, tell me if I'm wrong, that he's probably not very, very far away. Otherwise, there'd be cover going out. Is that the consolation we can hang on to?
100%. I think if there was anything, the Lions aren't scared of flying people out, and they've got a lot of other options at 9. So I think if there was anything too serious, I think they would have done that already. Which suggests that you would think he'll be back for the next game or the game after that. You don't want to push people back too early, because if it is something minor, it can turn into something a bit bigger as well. So there's not a massive rush to get these players back onto the field, especially with some of the Irish boys. Andy Farrell know exactly what they can do. Like we say, it's completely different when you play for the Lions, but he'll have a lot of confidence in those boys as well. So I don't think he'll need to rush them back. With Keenan and Blair obviously being away with Toulouse, you'll want one of those back pretty soonish as well, because they're out of those two. I'd imagine one of them is going to be a starting 15. So it'll be interesting when Blair comes back in as well, how quickly he'll start. Obviously, the boys, after they came back after the finals last week, all got a rest. So it'll be interesting to see if Blair gets a week off or not, or whether he'll get chucked straight in.
The other thing, again, and from your experience, you can explain this to us, maybe, Mish, is that we're looking at this team here to play the Force in kind of in isolation. Going through what the team is actually going to be. The Lions coaches and selectors, though, have got to look at it on a slightly broader view than that, haven't they? Because they've got the Reds coming up, they've got the Waratahs coming up as well. So they've got one eye on potential combinations they want to look at against the Reds and so on. So it's quite actually difficult for us to read too much into this team, bearing in mind they've got a wider picture as to who they want to see and who needs to have a run. As I've got it here, I think there's 6 guys so far who haven't had a start. Ronan Kelleher, Will Stewart, Andrew Porter, Ollie Chesham, Jack Conan, and Hugh Jones. I mean, they're thinking in a slightly broader picture than us, aren't they?
100%. I mean, you can't read too much into the squad about who you think will, or is this going to be Test Series players, or is it going to, are these combinations going to be in the Test Series? It's all on. I mean, the players, these guys get the first chance actually on the tour to lay down their mark and put down the marker and say, listen, I'm good enough to be a Test player. So they get the first opportunity on tour, which is always quite a special moment for them. But bigger picture wise, yeah, the coaches will probably already have a team sheet sort of marked up for next game of who they think will be playing. There's a bit of rotation involved. But yeah, I think it's you want to obviously put down a massive marker first one on tour, but everyone will get an opportunity. I think that's from my experience when we were out there in 2021. Everyone will get a start or 2 starts, and you'll all get a chance at some point as well.
You mentioned back row earlier on. Can I just dig into that just a tiny bit more, obviously, because that's your area of expertise, Mish. We had sort of three wild dogs against Argentina, if I can put it that way. The blend this time is obviously slightly different, with Tyburn coming in and Henry moving to 8. In your experience and your preference, what's the ideal blend of a back row, Mish? I mean, I know we've gone down the road lately with some teams sort of playing 3 dogs in the back row, and that can work depending on how you want to play against, depending on who you're playing against. But if you're talking sort of animals 15, to bring it down a level, are you more of a kind of a moose, a hyena, and a bison sort of a guy, or are you happy to go with the wild dogs?
Put it this way, if I could pick my back row every time, I'd obviously pick 3 sevens. That gives always me the
just
best,
to maximise your chances.
Always
Mish,
me the best chance of playing.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
realistically nowadays, Test rugby, I think Australia probably is one of the Test teams you might get away with what we did last weekend against Argentina, playing 2 sevens when they obviously played Curry, Ben Earl, and Jack Morgan. I think. Ben Earl's a bit different as well, because as an 8, I don't think he was taped up last week, so he's not a massive jumper either. That's why I mentioned Jack Conan earlier, potentially, in my opinion, maybe being the Test 8. Obviously, very early to say, but that's just going off what I think right now. And as we mentioned before as well, with one of the second rows playing at 6, I just think the blend of back rows that he's brought on tour, all very dynamic players, and quite a lot of, you'd say, sevens in there. Obviously, you've got Curry and a few others who can play 6, but really they're probably, I know England play 2 sevens, but really they probably are a 7, not a 6. So I think that's when he might look Test series wise of looking at another line-out option, like we mentioned earlier with Tig, or with Ollie Chesham. Henry Pollock at 8. Obviously plays there a lot with Northampton as well, but he's not your biggest 8. He can do, as we've seen from all the highlights he's got this season, he can do that role very easily. He can score tries from anywhere, but he's probably weight wise not your typical number 8. So I think the makeup of the back row, personally, I do think a second row might step in there at 6. Obviously, it depends on how these next few games go. But yeah, that would be my take on the back row. That I just think nowadays with Test rugby, you need those line-out options.
Let me drag you down memory lane for a second, Mish, because you mentioned there about the importance of how big an occasion it is to start your first game for the Lions, particularly when you're in the country that you're touring rather than the warm-up game back home. 4 years ago, you started the first Lions game in South Africa. I think ironically it was against the Lions, wasn't it? It was Lions against the Lions at Ellis Park. You scored a try within 6 minutes. You were man of the match, which, given Josh Adams scored 4 tries, suggests either A, a screaming injustice, or B, you must have had one heck of a game, Watson. Which one was it?
It was a stitch up. I knew the person giving the man of the match. No, it's always a weird one, those, because there's a lot of tries normally in these warm up games. So yeah, I couldn't remember Josh getting 4, but yeah, only getting 1, that does scream a bit of injustice now. But I was very happy at the time with getting man of the match.
Imagine. What was your trinket for player of the match? Because South Africans are obviously sometimes a bit strange on what they hand over to the player of the match. What did you get?
It was a pretty standard trophy. Like they obviously have them all made up. It was the same for every game. You got with the South African colours, a sort of trophy on it with the who was it against, Lions versus Lions, date. So obviously still have that now, which is a cool bit.
Yeah, where is that now, and where's the shirt now, Mish?
It's in my office, actually. I say office in the loosest sense of the word. It's
man cave.
It's in my gaming room. Yeah, I'm a 33-year-old man, but I still like to turn the Xbox on every now and again. So it's in my we'll stick with office. It's in my office. The Lions jerseys on the wall, and the trophies at the back of a wardrobe somewhere in my office.
So if you want to talk us through your try, feel free. The floor's yours. I can give you 5 minutes. I'll go and make a cup of tea. You could talk us through how many players you beat, how many. Just away you go, Mish. Talk us through the try.
I can also confirm it wasn't good of any of Josh Adams. It was I think maybe Jamie George or Toby maybe picked off the base of the ruck. I'll just give the true story. There's no point trying to make it sound good. He did a little pass to me. I think I beat maybe 1.5 defenders and scored under the post.
Watson, you ran through a guy who was the size of a dust cart. I can't remember who it was, but it was almost like sort of Scott Gibbs in 97. You sort of put this guy in a pile, pinballed off him, pinball, there's your name, and in you went. Yeah, it was typical Hamish Watson.
It was a nice moment. I'm not gonna lie. First game on tour, it was a fond memory.
I bet it was. And as you sit here now, Mish, and you watch the tour start to unfold 4 years later, I mean, what emotions does that stir in you? And does it make you, in the nicest possible way, a little bit envious? Thinking, God, I wish I was there. And how's it feel watching the Lions when you've so recently been one?
Yeah, of course it does. I think I'd be lying if I didn't say I was a bit envious of the boys who are going on second tours, third tours, a tour with fans. So I think you saw Bundy come out after the Argentina game and say how amazing it was, because obviously 2021 was a completely different experience. So I think that would have been amazing to have that experience, but also I cherish all the memories that I made on the 2021 tour and realise how hard it is. I think all the players have been on Lions tours realise how hard it is to get on a Lions tour. So from that respect, I think I'm also really happy that I can look back and you're watching it and thinking I have done that. I've played for the Lions, and I've got some amazing memories that have gone with that. And it's, like I say, it's something very hard to do. So full respect to all these guys who have managed to stay on the top for 3 tours or 2 tours, and the guys go on their first tours, because it's not easy to do, and you have to play bloody well leading up to it. So it's fair play to all the guys going on their second and third ones. But I'm watching it, like you say, a bit envious of them, but then also excited to see how all the Scotland players go for a second tour running. We've managed to get more than 2 or 3 Scots on tour, which is great as well from that perspective. And for all the fans,
too many. It's way too many.
For all the fans as well, the Scotland fans, that's obviously big for them as well. It means they can fully get behind it. So it's always exciting. You don't really understand how big it all is until you're out there and you realise and you see the cohesion of all the players. You come together a lot quicker than you think. You always think, how is going into it? How is this going to work? 4 teams who normally don't like each other in the Six Nations. There's always a bit of handbags and I know when I went onto the tour, you have these preconceptions of what you think about people in the other teams, but then once you're out there, it's an amazing feeling. You all come together. There's a common goal, and it just happens. You don't think it would, and you suddenly align, and you wanting to do anything you can to win for them and make everyone proud. So it's a funny feeling, but one I'm sure all the boys are getting now.
Let's just pick up on that cohesion point you're making there, Mish, because obviously it was the theme of the first game against Argentina. I mean, Mara was asked before the game, "What do you really want to see tonight?" And he said cohesion, and obviously for understandable reasons we didn't get it. To what extent? I mean, this may sound like a daft question, but to what extent does the cohesion that you get off the pitch reflected in what you see on it? I mean, the obvious answer is yes. I mean, obviously, the tighter you are, the more you want to play for each other, the better you are. But I mean, I can remember 2005 Lions, who were a very happy bunch of campers by all accounts off the pitch, and that just didn't translate onto the pitch. How much of that is actually integral to the one leading into the other, do you think?
Yeah, I think sometimes you can see, I can't remember the 2005 one as much, but sometimes you can see all the boys blending really well, getting on together really well off the field, and it doesn't translate onto the field. But from my point of view and from my opinion, I feel that if you can get that cohesion off the field, whether it's club rugby like we do at Edinburgh, international rugby, or even with the Lions, I think those bonds that you make off the field, they're the ones that when you realise you care for the person you're playing for as well, or care for the coaches and stuff like that. And obviously a lot of the boys will go onto a Lions tour carrying for the jersey, but until you actually all come together off the field, I don't feel like in my opinion, you can get that cohesion. So that will take another couple of weeks. They've only for the Argentina game, they're only together 2 weeks. A lot of the guys came in,
and half of them weren't there for the first week.
A lot of the guys came in from finals. So although they'll be going to coffee shops, chatting together, messing around the hotel, but until you properly know each other and you build those bonds pretty quickly because everyone's in the same boat as well. So until you get that, that's when I think you start really caring for each other on the field. That's from what I think anyway. Sometimes whatever that might be, whether it's just hanging out together, messing around, gaming in each other's rooms, whether it's going to grab a few beers with each other. I think that's when you properly understand people. You get to know one another. You're asking about their families, what they care about, what they're interested in, and I think that's when you can properly build bonds with players that you didn't know before.
Let's just talk about the game in Perth against the Force. The Force finished 9th out of 11 in Super Rugby Pacific. They were the last and the least of the 4 Australian franchises. I'm wary of chucking in bookmakers' odds, bearing in mind what happened last Friday, but the Lions are 20 to 1 on, apparently, to win that game. Is that about right, do you think?
I think so.
What's your depth of knowledge on the Western Force?
I'm not gonna lie. I had a quick look at their team sheet before. Obviously, there's a few of the Australian players in it, or a few ex-Australian players. I'm not gonna lie. I don't watch too much Australian club rugby, so my knowledge of Australian club rugby is not amazing. All I can go on is previous the Lions tour that I went on, and even when you play these good club teams, it is very hard for them to keep up with 15, 23 of the best players in Britain. So it is hard for them. Sometimes obviously you do get the odd shock, or they hang in there for the first half, but in my opinion, and obviously like you say with the bookmakers, at some point the Lions are gonna pull away from the game and score a lot of tries, and I think that's normally what you get with these warm-up games.
We've had I won't call it a spat because that's a little bit tabloid, but we've had this kind of small flurry of feathers this week, haven't we, over player release, Wallaby player release, going back to the state and provincial teams, specifically what the tour agreement says about which of the Wallabies' 36-man squad for their game against Fiji next week are supposed to be released for these state games. I mean, the Western Force, I think 6 out of 8 are back for the Force. It was going to be 5, but I think Curtly Beale's pulled a hamstring and Ben Donaldson's been released to start at fullback. That makes it 6. Just 2 out of 8 from the Reds will be back on Wednesday. I mean, in the absence of a copy of the tour agreement, I don't know exactly what the thing says, so it's hard to draw conclusions. What's your take on all of that, Mish?
Yeah, I don't know whether... Obviously, in 2021, I think it was different because the whole COVID bubbles that you had. So I was trying to remember when I saw that out on the tour agreement, or I read it on Instagram or something. I was trying to think back to when we played the Sharks and stuff, and I'm pretty sure they didn't have any of their internationals, but that would have been those COVID bubbles, wouldn't it? That you couldn't have probably been released from the South Africa squad and gone and played for the Sharks of risk of getting COVID or whatever the rules were back then. So those games weren't as competitive for us because I don't think they had any current internationals in those games. But like you say, if that is the tour contracts, and you do want these games to be competitive, and you want to, there's a risk of injury with any game of rugby you play. So I know what the Australians will be thinking if they release their players. They could get injured, but it's exactly the same for the Lions as well. We could
exactly.
Lose.
I mean, the Lions are putting their test players out in the so-called, in inverted commas, warm-up games. So why can't Australia do the same?
Yeah, I agree. And for a lot of the fans out there, for everyone watching back home, you do want, whether these games are going to be really competitive or not, you still want to see the Australian stars playing as well and trying to light up the games as well. So it's a bit disappointing from that regard. I can also see slightly where Joe Schmidt's coming from if they're
I can too. I
can see both.
There is a fixture clash there, isn't there, Mitch? Yeah. Definitely, because I mean this game against Fiji in Newcastle on Sunday. I mean the Waratahs game is the day before that, the Brumbies game is 3 days after that, and the Reds game is 4 days before it. So it's you're not really going to be releasing your test frontliners 4 days before a test or 3 days after it, are you? So I can understand Joe Schmidt's position on that, though. Yeah, that is.
Yeah, exactly. But then, like you say, that we're having to do it against the Lions. So it's a tough one, isn't it?
I mean, from the Lions' point of view, how much of a worry is this? Because if they are playing, say, denuded, but if they are playing weakened or not quite as strong teams against, the Reds, the Waratahs, the Brumbies, the last game after that, before the first test, is this Anzac game. We don't know as yet who's going to be in it. There have been rumours about various people, but then other people have been injured and so on and so forth. But whoever they are, they're going to be a scratch side. So, I mean, is there going to be a worry here in the Lions' perspective that they're just not going to get a serious hit out here? And how do they best deal with that?
I don't think so. I think we obviously got a big hit out against the Argentinians, so that'll be really helpful going forward. I think they would have learned a lot from that game. We know that we didn't play well in that game, really. There's way too many turnovers. I think the positives we can take from that was the set piece looked really good, didn't it? And which
It
is
did.
so the
scrum certainly, maybe not the
scrum
lineup,
looked
the
very
scrum
good.
certainly.
Yeah, the line-out
Yeah.
more looked decent, but obviously a few teething issues with the throws. But that's also with running, like I think Sam Walton mentioned it, with everyone on different triggers and only playing together 2 weeks, whereas a scrum's a bit more. You know what you need to do in there, don't you? I imagine. Well, I imagine the front three. No, and the second row.
No idea. I have no idea.
But the scrum looked very good. Set piece looked good. So yeah, just on the warm-up fixture, I think it's more about, like we said earlier, getting chemistry, getting a cohesion with it. Whether you beat a team by 20 points or 50 points, it's more about finding out who's playing well with each other. Also, who's looking really good individually, but more to the point, cohesion wise, who's working well with the other players. So I think it doesn't matter so much if you're not getting the best test. You're still playing high level games at a good level. So you're not going to go in rusty. You just might have not had a test since the Argentina one, which I think it happens on quite a few Lions tours, to be honest.
Just as we head towards wrapping things up a bit, Mish, let's just look ahead to the Test series, if that's all right. And we'll just play a sort of an infantile game here, just for 1 second. Have a think about what you think is the Lions' top trump card in the Test series. Don't tell me what it is. Okay, just have a think about what or who you think is the one top trump that the Lions have for the Test series. Let me know when you've thought of something, and then on the count of 3, you say yours, I'll say mine, and let's see if we agree. This could be an amazing moment, Mish. This could be one of the great moments in podcast history. Have you got something?
It's going to be very boring, unfortunately.
All right, that's not a problem. Okay, after 3, you ready? 1, 2, 3. Bench.
Set piece.
Where you go? Why set piece?
I'm going very much on what I saw from the Argentina game, and Six Nations, a lot of the home nations teams, we pride ourselves on our set piece, and I just think from what I saw, Argentina were missing a few players, but I thought the scrum was very dominant. We didn't give away that many penalties on the set piece stuff. We scored off the back of a driving maul. We should have scored off the back of a driving maul, sorry. And I think that Australia, from what I saw in the autumns, they're very good ball in hand. They could score from anywhere, but I think set piece is something that we will target against them.
I agree.
I agree. If you can win penalties from that and keep pinning them back, I think that's something we can massively target.
And just to mention the bench just for 1 second, which was my amateur pick. It is becoming a much more influential part of the game, isn't it? I mean, I guess the Springboks were kind of sort of the pioneers on this, but this season we've seen it with France in the Six Nations. We've seen it with UBB in the Champions Cup, certainly with Bath in the Premiership, to a greater or lesser extent with Leinster in the URC and in the Champions Cup as well. This idea of having a lumpy, classy bench that will come on and do the job for you in the last 20 minutes of the game. Given the depth that the Lions have got, I mean, they've got a squad of 38 who are all top-flight Test players, and Australia clearly haven't got that in their 36-man squad. How significant do you think that potentially could be, Mish?
I think the bench will be very significant when you've got 8 world-class players coming on the field. It's always going to be tough for Australia to keep up with that sort of depth. That's always the difference. If Australia pick up a few injuries, it can be pretty catastrophic for them. Whereas the Lions, it's sort of next man up, isn't it? We've got, obviously don't want to see anyone get injured, but we have got a lot of depth in positions and a lot of good players who can step up there. So I think the bench is going to play a crucial part, as you mentioned, with the South Africa thing. I wouldn't think they'll go 6-2 splits in the Test series.
No, I'm not sure. I'm sure they've got the
because there's just too many good
players
backs as well. Yeah,
yeah,
there's too many
yeah,
good backs as well. And I think you start
yeah, I
cutting
agree.
out one of the backs. I think that would be a bit harsh, but
Mm.
I don't know. You see it in
Who needs backs
in-
anyway, Mish? Yeah, why bother with backs? Eh? What's the point of
you
having
do
them?
see it a lot of the internationals now. So who knows? But I think they'll probably go a 5-3 split. And I think, like we said, I think the bench will have a massive part to play. They always do in these Test series games. So it'll be interesting to see who he puts on the bench. Whether you put someone who he thinks can bring a lot of energy off the bench, and as we saw last week, at 9 we mentioned Mitchell already picked up the pace of the game, and it'll be interesting to see what he goes for.
Mish, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much for your time. I'll let you get back to the rain in Devon. You can go and make breakfast for the kids or whatever it is happening for the rest of the day. Bless you. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you on Saturday lunchtime-ish, I think. We're going to chew over the Force game. Is that right?
I think so.
I'll look forward to that, Mish. So thank you very much indeed for your time now. Thank you
Thanks
as
for having
always
me.
to our
Cheers.
sponsors. Cheers, Mish. Thanks as always to our sponsors, Continental Tyres, the official tyre partner to England Rugby. Remember, if you're looking for an award-winning tyre that can keep up with your every move, look no further than Continental Tyres. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Mish, the QT. As I said, we'll be back on Saturday after the Western Force game to chew that one over. In the meantime, do take care and enjoy the game.